Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with another clean and simple, my version of clean and simple, Halloween card. I started off with the spiderweb background that, yeah, I've said this before, I use this like all the time, love. So I have it face up on my work surface and I inked it up with a light gray ink. That's Simon's FLANNEL Pawsitively saturated ink. And then I pressed some white cardstock into it. And then while I had it out, I also have my card base, which will be a top folding A2 card, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I used some Post-it tape to mask off where the score line is so that the ink doesn't get past that score line. And then I inked up the stamp again with that flannel ink. And then pressed the inside of my card against that. So I've got that stamped on the inside as well. And then I had die cut some cotton candy cardstock with one of the nested domed arches wafer dies. I'm kind of obsessed with these wafer dies. I think I said this in another video too. It's funny when that die set was released, I was like, oh, It's always those ones that I'm kind of like blasé about, and then I'm obsessed. So I die cut the pink cardstock, and then I'm stamping images from the Halloween Gnomies set. This came out last year, I think. Yeah, this was part of last year's release. And I've done, I think, only one video using one of the images. I'll have to find it. I'll link to it. So I stamped the spider web and the little spider with VersaFine Clair NOCTURNE ink, and I stamped the stars from the set with some white pigment ink. And I set that aside, and then I stamped this one image. This is the little witch image onto just more of Simon's smooth white cardstock. I stamped it with intense black ink, and I'm doing some no blend coloring. I've done a couple of videos showing this. I can't even remember. It's been a long time since I've done it. I learned this technique from Yana Smakula. She designs for Simon Says Stamp as well. She designs for Spellbinders. She does beautiful cards, like just beautiful cards. I love her cards. And she did this technique. I'm just trying to think. It was a couple years ago. I forget how long ago it was. And I just loved it. So I did a couple of videos. And then a few months ago, she did it again. And it reminded me, I was like, oh yeah, I love this. So it's just like I show. It's really, really simple. You just need... I would say at least 3 shades of each color of Copic markers, and you don't do any blending. You just you apply your lightest color, and then you choose, you just draw sort of an imaginary line in a sense, but you just draw a line with your medium color, and then your darkest, just like I'm showing here. There's not a real formula. Like I said, I will link to Yana's video at the end of this, and you can check it out because she probably explains it better than me. It's been a while since I watched that video. But yeah, I really like it because then you don't have to really worry too much about blending colors into each other, blending the shades together, etc., which I know some people can struggle with. And you don't have to use Copics for this. You could just use regular markers, really. If you've got 3 different shades of each color, why not? Because there is no actual blending. So it would work. So anywho, I went with pink. Again, I'm obsessed. I don't know what it is. Like this year more than other years. I was like, I want like pastel pink on all my Halloween cards. I'm still mixing it up, but this one just kind of morphed into the card creation you're seeing today, and I had fun with it. So I colored her outfit and her hat pink, and then I used grays for the hair and the little boots, and then I'll use, of course, brown for the broomstick and some yellow. And keeping those traditional, sort of colors. And I still did the non-blending, even with the little broomstick. It's not as obvious, obviously, but I was just like, I'll just stick a little bit of medium, a little bit of darker. We're good to go. So added the yellows, of course, for the broom. This helped this really stand out a little bit more, this no blend coloring technique. And technically you would let each layer dry really well, because again, that's the nature of Copics, is because of their alcohol content, they naturally can kind of blend a little bit into each other. But with this sort of an image and it being as small as it is, I wasn't too concerned about it. So I still got that obvious difference between each shade, so no biggie there. So when I was done coloring, I die cut it with a coordinating wafer die, and then I pulled out a scrap of some slate gray cardstock, and I used my anti-static powder tool on that. And then I'm going to stamp the big outline Halloween sentiment from that Halloween Gnomies stamp set, and I'm going to stamp that with that same white pigment ink. Once that's stamped, I'm going to cover this with detail white embossing powder and melt this with my heat tool. And then, as like editing self, looking at this, I was like, oh, I could have used those little like hands that I showed in a haul video recently to hold this. You just got to be careful with smaller pieces. You know, you could also use just a clothespin. Just trying to think of that. I was like, when was the last time I ever used a clothespin? Anyway. Because people have asked that, like, how do I not burn myself? Trust me, the heat is aimed away from my fingers. And I'm also very aware of where the heat is and where my fingers are. And then I rotate it, hold the next, you know, the other side, and then heat. So, yeah. That, and also just, same with cooking, you know, just trying to be aware. It's usually not my hands that are the problem. It's my elbows, you know, my forearms and my elbows that I seem to, like, get into everything. Anyway. Heated that up, die cut that sentiment. On the inside of the card, I stamped one of the sentiments. I think this is another reason why I love the stamp so much, because the sentiments are very punny, which I love punny sentiments. So I did that, and then I stamped the little happy word onto my little domed arch there. And then both the spiderweb background piece and the arch, I put Simon's Big Mama foam tape on. So that'll give it a little bit of dimension, but it's not as bulky as regular foam tape. So I had no problem, you know, doing a little extra dimension with these. So pop those layers on, and then my little witch and the Halloween sentiment I'm going to pop up with, again, just thin foam squares. So nothing's too bulky. So pop those into place. I was going to leave it here because I was like, you know, this card's really cute, clean and simple, but the bling won out. I have these fabulous like holographic star confetti. It was just meant to be. They're too perfect. So with these, because they're so small, rather than lay them out like I normally do with bling, you know, I lay it out and then adhere it when I'm happy with it. This time I would just put down little dabs of glue, and I'd pick up the star with my embellishment wand from Studio Katia and then press it into the glue. And so then this way I can just go around and adhere them, you know, little clusters of them here and there on this card. And again, this is my version of clean and simple. This is my version of somewhat reining it in. Little confetti like this, like a container, has like a bajillion pieces, so you know I can use extras. So I adhered all of those into place, and I'm going to pair this card with a metallic cotton candy envelope just to tie in the pink and the shimmer, and it was just fun. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. In my blog post, there's always picture links and the pictures, all the things. So you can find that directly below, as well as the supply list. So you can check that out below if you're interested. And again, thank you guys for watching, for subscribing, thumbs upping, commenting, especially leaving comments and thumbs upping. It helps a ton. It tells the robot overlords you guys like what you see, so I appreciate it. And I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!